Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Carrie Elliott, and I'm the proud principal of Harmony Hills Elementary. We are so excited to host the Commissioner of Education, Mike Morath, and his team. We are also excited to welcome our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Sean Micah, his executive staff, as well as some of our NEISD board members. Before I turn it over to the next speaker, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our hardworking team of students, faculty, staff, community, PTA, and to our parents. Thank you so much for sharing your children with us. At this time, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Board President, Mr. David Byer. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Elliott. It's absolutely fantastic to be at one of our great Northeast schools. On behalf of the board, I want to thank all the educators, as Ms. Elliott just announced. We have our teachers, we have our staff, we have our parents, we have our community. Every single one of these folks has helped their students not only meet the expectations, but absolutely exceed the expectations. And so we want to thank you all for the work that you're doing every day. We know it's hard, we know it's long, but we also know it can be fulfilling. So we want to say thank you very much. Congratulations. We hope everybody has a fantastic year this year. It's been one weekend, so hope it's going well. And with that, I'm going to bring up Dr. Sean Micah, Superintendent. Thank you all very much.
Now let's see, Harmony Hills. You know where I'm probably going to start with. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. No, come on, y'all. Remember, we tried this at Convocation. Good afternoon. There we go. That's better. Hey, first off, Commissioner, thank you so much for choosing Northeast and Harmony Hills in particular. What they have accomplished is nothing short of amazing. You all truly pulled together as a team. Miss Elliott came in not too long ago, and I know there was some trepidation because we had some different folks coming through here as principals, but you all rallied behind her. She rallied behind you. And more importantly, our community rallied around our campus. You all have heard me talk about the HOV lane with our parents. When we get in that lane together, sometimes we differ about how we're going to get to our destination. But when we all work together, amazing things happen. And this is exactly what happened to you all. So congratulations to Harmony Hills. Congratulations to our community. I know you had a great week because I was out here, right, Miss Elliott? We walked around and looked at stuff. I know things are already working amazing, and I look forward to seeing how the great things continue to happen here at Harmony Hills. So congratulations. At this time, I'd like to welcome our Commissioner of Education, Mr. Mike Morath.
It is an honor to be here at Harmony Hills Elementary School in North East ISD. There are 1,200 school systems in the state of Texas, 9,000 campuses, and 5.5 million souls in Texas public schools, which gives me a lot of places to choose from. But something pretty amazing has happened here at Harmony Hills, and I am excited to be here among all other places in the state of Texas. We are here today to talk about the A through F system, and in fact there's a lot of conversations that can be had about this, and we debate past each other about numbers and metrics and what is the purpose of schooling, but fundamentally what today's discussion is about a belief system. It is a moral commitment to children that speaks to our highest ideals, that in the essence of our hearts, we believe that all children can learn and achieve at high levels. And when we say all, we don't mean some. We legitimately mean all. We don't care whether you're in a big city or a small town. We don't care what your family looks like. We don't care where you came from. We don't care if it's general education, special education, you speak English at home, you don't speak English at home, that if we as adults do what it takes to support our kids, that all children will learn and achieve at high levels. This is a moral belief system that pervades the Texas system of public education, and it's actually embedded into state law. It is codified in statute and in rule, and it's codified in a bunch of specific ways, because you can get very highfalutin in your language from time to time when you speak to whether all children do learn and achieve at high levels. But let's make this very specific. In Texas, we think everybody in third grade should have memorized their times tables by the end of third grade. That is one specific way. When we say that all children can learn and achieve at high levels, that's one of the things that we mean. In Texas, the State Board of Education votes on and adopts formal student expectations at every single grade level. You see an example of this right here. I'm going to go ahead and read it to you. Represent 1- and 2-step problems involving addition and subtraction of whole numbers up to 1,000. There will be some math in today's presentation. So what does this mean? You'll notice that that first word doesn't say solve, it says represent. And if you think about that, this is actually the beginning of algebraic reasoning. It is about kids making sense of the world around them and boiling down these patterns in the natural world so that we can turn it into an expression that we can then logically reproduce. This is what math is at its essence. And so this is one among many student expectations that we have for kids in third grade. We make this very specific, and we give a very popular test at the end of the year, the STAR test, to help us discern whether or not our students have in fact learned these skills. And the STAR test is not this sort of weird construction. It is actually based on measuring these same student expectations. Not to judge the students, but to evaluate us and how well we support our kids and whether or not they will grow and reach their highest level of potential. Back to this represent 1- and 2-step problems involving addition and subtraction of whole numbers of 1,000. Let's read this. An art teacher had 736 crayons. If you are not a math expert, that is a whole number under 1,000. She threw away 197 broken crayons. Right then and there, you can see it. I have to figure out that the natural world, the situation around me, involves subtraction. There's another step. Then she bought 150 more crayons. I have to represent that that represents addition, and then I can express this in an equation. This is one among many things that we expect our third graders to learn by the end of the year. And when we do what is required, we give them great instruction, great curriculum, an incredibly talented crew of educators that have high expectations for them that are meeting their individual needs, then this can be true. This knowledge can be attained by all of our children at the end of the school year. This is what we do. And we look at ourselves. Are we in fact meeting our expectations for kids and how we do this? And we hold ourselves to account. We are very transparent in whether or not we, in the roughly $85 billion a year that we spend on public education in the state of Texas, whether we have met that standard for our kids or whether or not we haven't. And so we have this A through F rating system that is designed to help us see how well did this perform. And you know, there's a lot of like conventional wisdom. There's a lot of common sense to, yes, what is inspected is respected. Let's be very public about how well we perform. I, as a former school board member in Dallas, 4.5 years, this kind of performance information was about the most useful thing the state ever did for us, because I could then tell relatively quickly, are my schools better? Are they the same? Or are they worse? Because the voters entrusted in me as a trustee responsibility to improve our schools for our kids. That's why we do this. So a lot of common sense to it, but you don't even have to just rely on common sense to it. Our accountability system in Texas has been studied. A ton of researchers have looked at it. There are long-term longitudinal studies looking at, say, third graders all the way to when they turn 25, they turn 30 years of age. What happens to them? And what researchers have found is that because we publicly hold ourselves to account, because we publicly describe the performance of campuses, our kids do better as a result of this. They do better academically. And I don't mean they're just passing standardized tests. I mean, they do better in every way academically. They have better grades. They show up to school more likely on time. They graduate from high school at higher rates. They go to college at higher rates. The researchers are able to identify kids individually long-term as a result of the accountability system, and they were making more money at 25 than they would have been without this. Now, this doesn't make it easy. This is hard. These are very public ratings. And in a place like Harmony Hills, we get to celebrate the highest level of performance that has been delivered for kids. But we have to be honest with ourselves, and sometimes that just doesn't happen. That level of performance isn't what we see. And so it is about recognizing what our performance is and reflecting on where we have been and how much we have grown. And oh boy howdy, how Harmony Hills has grown. When I look at this team, and what is true today for kids at Harmony Hills, it is a reflection that in some ways, when I let the lesser angel of my nature speak, I think of this as magical. But the thing about it is not magic, folks. It is very skilled staff, a lot of hard work, focusing on delivering kids great curriculum, great instruction, great academic supports, every classroom, every day, every kid. That is what this team has done. And these are not just bar charts on a slide. Walk the halls. These are children. You can look them in the eye and you can shake their hands, and they walk taller than they did before. They bring to we incessantly focus on self-esteem in this country, but they have something to be proud about what they have achieved, what they have learned, what they have mastered. They can write with better clarity. They can spell. Their grammar is improved. Their ability and their knowledge of history has improved. Their knowledge of science has improved. Their ability to understand the abstract world with mathematics has improved. We are putting them on a path to pursue the American dream. So maybe one day one of our kids at Harmony Hills is given this speech from this podium 20 years from now. That's what public education represents. We're in the American dream business. We're supposed to give kids opportunity, and that is what has happened at Harmony Hills. That is ultimately why we have an A through F system. It is designed to be rigorous and look at what our students know, because you've got to learn this stuff. When you go apply for a job, when you want to start your own business, either you know it or you don't. You've got to learn it. And so we look at whether or not they have mastered these core disciplines of reading and math, writing, their broader knowledge of history, science. That's achievement. What do they know? But, you know, we don't live in a perfect world. We are, in many ways, a fallen, flawed species. And our kids come to our schools from all manner of backgrounds. In some cases, two-parent household, loved each other, loved kids, constantly putting the needs of the kids over their own needs. In other cases, life can get very hard and distracting. And our kids are bringing whatever that background is into the school building with them. Now at Harmony Hills, they work to build an envelope of love and support around those kids, to make sure that while we have them the 7 hours a day, that they are growing and growing as effectively as possible. Doesn't always happen, but it does happen. It has happened here. And when we think about evaluating the impact of a school, we don't just look at achievement, we also look at growth. You can have kids that walk in the door 2, 3 grade levels behind sometimes. This does happen. The question is, what do we do with them while we had them? And in Harmony Hills, they grew them faster than anybody else. This is a high level of growth for a broad group of students. This is what school is about, the great equalizer. That no matter where you come from, no matter what you look like, you walk into our doors and we're going to give you the absolute best and equip you for success in America. And when we evaluate our schools, we look at achievement, but we also look at their progress or growth with students, and we'll give you the better of the two ratings. We think about that for the average child, but if we're really serious about all meaning all, we can't just look at the average child. We got to look at individual groups of children. We have how are we doing with students with disabilities? How are we doing with families that or kids that come from families that are low income versus kids that come from families of moderate or high income? How do we do with kids with that do not speak English as their first language at home? And so we think about how well the school closes the gaps, and Harmony Hills is in the gap closure business. We got to franchise y'all. We got to close gaps all over. We need to replicate you. I don't know if you got cousins or brothers or sisters we can put in other schools, but like this team is delivering results for kids to drive achievement up, to maintain academic growth, to close gaps. And that's what we recognize with the A through F system. The statewide, we have had a great year when you think about the educators that we have all over the state of Texas. Had we ratings in the 2024 school year, about 18% of campuses statewide would be A-rated. But a lot of hard work from a lot of educators all over the state. We see 23% of our schools this year got an A. Material improvement all over the state of Texas. A lot of hard-working teachers, principals all over the state. 31% of our campuses actually saw their ratings increase year over year. And in fact, if you boil that down, in some cases, you get pretty rarefied company. There are 5 campuses statewide that had an F last year that this year had an A. 95 campuses. 95 campuses out of 9,000 went from a C to an A in 1 year. You're in very rare company. And I'm honored to celebrate the work here. And the systems broadly in North East ISD, they're designed to support kids and to ensure that every school can be successful for kids. This is what we want to see. Where we will struggle, we will fall from time to time. The question is, what do we do to stand back up and stand back up as quickly as possible? You know, there are people that debate sometimes with me directly that this is just a label of a neighborhood. But the thing is, that's not true. We have 361 campuses in the state of Texas where more than 80% of the kids require federal support to eat on a regular basis. 361 campuses that, even with those challenges in the neighborhood, the schools are delivering results for those kids. High poverty and yet high performing campuses. Poverty is not destiny. When we get public education right, it is the greatest institution in the history of man. It is what is the great equalizer for Americans in every place in the country when we get it right. But we have to know how well we're doing. And that is ultimately the reason we issue A through F ratings. We need to make sure that we are being honest with ourselves about how well we're supporting schools. You can today visit a website, texasschools.gov, txschools.gov, and you can research any and every school in the state of Texas. And so if you pull up an individual school's rating, you can get the details of that school. Now, of course, this ain't Harmony Hills, because if it was, it'd be an A. So this is another school's rating. But what you also see here is their performance history, because again, we don't live in a utopia. The question is, was this year better than last year? How are we going to build an action plan so that next year is better even than that? That's why we do this. Now, we have been unable to do this for a couple of years. A bunch of districts sued us to try to prevent this information from being clearly released to parents and in their own communities. But we will see here even the 2024 results, which were made available today, so you can see how every school changed year over year. This school here, what has been true at Harmony Hills over the last year has been transformational. Not just because of the procedural changes and the way staff are carrying about their duties, but transformational in the lives of children to equip kids better than ever before for being able to engage in modern America, to live and experience the American dream. We do this for our educators to equip our own plans, but also for parents. I am not just Commissioner of Education, I'm also a client. I got 4 kids, dropped them off at school this morning, and we want to make sure that parents are empowered with the most information imaginable so that they will be able to drive their kids' education in the best way they see fit. So you can log in the website, you can check out any individual school, but you could put up, type your home address and do a 5-mile radius. And I want to see all the elementary schools that have, I don't know, a dual language program, whatever specific academic program that you're interested in, and check that out. But not just for finding the best school for yourselves, but also examining the performance of the school that you're currently in, and how can we make it better? How is it working? How do I most effectively advocate for my own kids and the kids that go to school at my school? That's why we do this. That's why we have this resource online, and we got a ton of resources online. So you can go, you can get a quick analysis of performance, but you can delve into as much nerdy detail as you like. There's all kinds of reports that you can do to dissect exactly how well performance has been and in what ways and where. But ultimately, I'm here today to say thank you to this team. Thank you to Principal Elliott. Because this work, for those of you who do not work as educators full time, this work is hard. It's the hardest work that we do in life. If you think teaching is easy, I want you to think for just a second of a brain surgeon, because at least we give the benefit for them of their patients are under anesthesia and there's only one brain at a time. The work that we do in our schools is the most complex work that happens, and it's the most important work for our civilization. So I just want to say thank you and to the team here at Harmony Hills. God bless you for what you've done. That's my speech. I'm happy to take questions.
Commissioner, we of course are at a North East ISD campus right now. North East ISD had 4 failed schools in 2023, 1 in 2024, and a 0 in 2025.
Boom. There it is.
And yet, though, its overall grade has remained the same at a 78 or a C. So what is your message to educators, administrators who are seeing this campus progress, but then not seeing it reflected?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is a, that is really indicative of how hard this work is. You think about how large Northeast ISD is and how many schools that have to be well run. This work is the most difficult sphere of work that I have ever seen, and the process of making a school excellent, the process of igniting what has happened here at Harmony Hills. It is not magic. It is a lot of hard work that has to be focused on the right things. And when we see this, when I talk to Superintendent Micah about their strategy for improvement, there's really sort of 5 key things you got to get right. It comes down to leadership, talent, culture, curriculum, instruction. And everything else becomes a bit of a distraction. But if you can get those things right, from a leadership perspective, you start with high expectations. You develop systems to monitor performance. You ensure that you create an environment where excellence is pursued. From a talent perspective, you are relentless at recruiting. You are relentless at supporting. You are relentless at retaining the best and brightest minds to work with kids. This is critical. From a culture perspective, what do we do in the school to ensure that the environment is loving and supportive, that there are, where students might need wraparound supports, that they are provided, where differentiation, so that when students enter the class, they can enter the class ready to learn. This has to happen. From a curriculum perspective, what do you do to ensure that there is grade level, on grade level, rigorous, well-developed content every day? If you are in a 3rd grade math class and the curriculum is 2nd grade math, you're not going to master 3rd grade math material that year. So how do you ensure that the reading that the students are doing, the writing that they're doing, the nature of the engagement, it's rigorous, but it's also built on strong cognitive science principles so that students can actually learn from it and remember. And then instruction. Instruction's got to be delivered well. And if you think that this is, by analogy, a classroom, you're the students and I'm the teacher, what I can tell you is this is real bad instruction I'm delivering to you right now. Because I don't know if I'm checking anybody in the back to see whether or not they understand what I'm saying. Teachers don't just give speeches. They've got to make sure that every student has mastered the content every day. And when I say every student, I don't mean that 10 of the 20 got it. I don't mean 15 of the 20 got it. All 20 of the 20 have been engaged in doing the mental work to master that material every day. This is hard to do. They are doing this in Northeast ISD, iteratively, systemically, as wise as possible. And of course, they are tilting resources where they need to be, where there are specific struggles. They work to turn that environment around as rapidly as possible, and that's the success we're celebrating today. But of course, there's still a lot of work, because day in, day out, you've got to get those 5 things right in every classroom, in every school, every day.
Commissioner, how could going from one state assessment and here to 3 change the rating system?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the legislature is entertaining a possible change in the way that we try to discern student progress. And so the idea behind a progress monitoring system, you get a checkpoint at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, the end of the year. It should really help our teachers and administrators support academic growth. You can see it's a lot more useful to get information in February while the school year is still happening, so that I can take action and drive improvement from that. And so there's a lot of benefit from it. The legislature actually in 2019 directed us to engage in a research and development activity related to an alternative way to do this. And one of the things that we learned about was how to do a multiple sort of progress monitoring approach. Ultimately, we'll have to wait and see what the legislature passes to see how that works. The bill language that I've seen actually has language to ensure that we sort of equate the difficulty level of any new test versus an old test, so it shouldn't fundamentally change the nature of A through F.
Commissioner, you talked about the gains that we're seeing across the state, and Harmon Hills being one of them. What is contributing to this improvement we're seeing here and?
Yeah, I mean, that's the $75 billion question. It is somewhat difficult to answer that because it's not as though we have a strong, say, random controlled trial of all the variables that are happening. But we do know that on a widespread basis, there's been a major investment in our teachers in terms of reading practices, significant supports for campuses to gain access to high quality instructional materials to support instruction. A lot of efforts related to intervention systems and support, some improvements in dyslexia. There's a whole host of specific supports in mathematics that have been made available. It's somewhat impossible to know any one thing. What we do know, however, is that A through F is back, and the evidence behind having a public accountability system is that it is in fact very positive in terms of its impact on school performance around the state, because it helps us all focus in the whirlwind that we deal with on making the most important thing, which is every day our kids learn in every classroom.
Commissioner, right here, how would you say COVID impacted the ratings, and are we seeing things improve after that?
Yeah, so one important lesson learned: if you can avoid a global pandemic, you need to do so. The COVID was a very significant destructive force in our communities and in the minds of our kids in terms of how we educated them during the disruption. And we have students who are still struggling with significant academic gaps that happened during COVID. I can see that with my own 7th grader. She would have been finishing 1st grade the year that COVID started. I think that's right. And so, mathematics in particular, you learn this, then you learn this, then you learn this, and they're all kind of dependent upon the thing you learned just before that. So we have huge gaps for students, certainly in secondary, 6th to 12th grade, that we can still see in statewide results in mathematics. That being said, we have seen achievement rise materially, both in math and reading in the last year. And we rate schools both on growth and on proficiency. And so we're seeing proficiency rise, and we're seeing improvements in growth. And so our schools are recovering. We've got an army of angels that work for us. Here, you can look at some of them right there. I don't know if you can see their wings, but they're there. And they do hard work every day to help us, both with the incoming crew of kindergartners that come every year, and the group that continue to progress through the system.
Sorry, I'm a teacher, and I don't know if we raise our hand or not.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, of course, this is so amazing to see, and it's so heartwarming as a staff. And I know there are two kind of different systems, but I'm curious, is there any type of data tracking or any correlation between seeing this type of campus growth, but then also seeing how many teachers receive the teacher incentive allotment that represents that growth? Because just from a local level, I've noticed a little bit of a disparity in that, and I'm just wondering, moving forward, is that something to look at?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have data on a statewide. So the teacher incentive, for everyone else's benefit, the teacher incentive allotment is a unique program set up by the Texas legislature, where if a local school system goes through its own rigorous way of discerning the difference between good and great, and builds a system that is fair, which means if two different people are walking into your classroom to judge your performance, they need to come to the same conclusion. So each district has their own structure to this, but of course there's patterns that we see statewide. So with that, and when you do this as a local school district, the legislature gives you somewhere between $3,000 and $36,000 per year per teacher of extra money to compensate them. So what we see is that in campuses and in districts that have a higher density of TIA teachers, you see a much bigger percentage of students who are on grade level generally, so this is, say, a domain 1. And in campuses that are TIA generally, you see much higher rates of academic growth. And I think you're something like 18 to 20% more likely to end up on grade level if you were below grade level in a school that has TIA teachers, even if you weren't in a TIA teacher classroom, interestingly enough. To your specific question, I don't know that I have broken down in any of the individual domains or seen that. Our team produces an annual report on TIA itself, so I'll make a note and we'll try to add this to our analytics work each year.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments and answers.
Other questions?
I had a school district, well, not Northeast, but another school district in the San Antonio region that saw a lot of gains, attributed it to them being one of the first districts to adopt a strict cell phone policy. I'm curious if with the implementation of the cell phone ban heading into this school year, you think that we might see some even bigger gains just statewide?
Yeah, I am super optimistic about the impact of that. I mean, I'm a dad first and foremost, so I can't tell you how many times I've had this conversation with my daughter, and nope, you're not getting a cell phone. It's not going to happen. I don't care how many neighbors' kids get a cell phone. It is poison. I'm not giving it to you. So there is really extensive evidence on the impact of cell phones in schools, and it's clear, it's pretty unequivocal. There's actually a study, just as a frame of reference. If you have your cell phone down, face down on your desk, it causes you to do worse on every single assignment that comes to you than if it were not in the room. So I am optimistic about the impact of that policy. It's a big change right now. Many school systems are having to go through and deal with that change. That district that you're talking about has already dealt with that change and is potentially reaping the benefits of that already. I am hopeful to see the positive impact from this long term on the academic quality of our schools. But back to the other point, it's not like we're implementing it just in one part of the state versus another, so I won't be able to necessarily tease out the impact of that one policy change versus anything else that's happening.
Got time for a couple more?
Commissioner, you talked about how any district can succeed and get a good score. I am curious for folks in high poverty neighborhoods who talk about and criticize the system and say, they're having to work with fewer resources but meet higher needs of students. How would you respond to that?
Well, from a resource perspective, the differences in the communities are real, but the differences in the schools are potentially less so than might be anticipated. The reason is that the school finance system of Texas is designed in a very equitable way. So for students who are eligible for the free or reduced lunch program, if you serve a student like that, you automatically get somewhere between $1,200 and $2,000 extra dollars per year allocated to your budget from the state. So there's a whole host of mechanisms that are designed to actually invest additional resources in schools that have higher densities of student poverty. And now internal districts will organize their own, because these districts are given by the state to the district, and so you still have a lot of managerial decisions, a lot of board decisions related to budget and allocation. But the state essentially tries to account for that in its school finance formulas to provide extra resources. But this is a good reminder: money does not educate children. These are the group of people that educated children. And so the focus on supporting staff, making sure that your educators are empowered to be as effective as possible, that they have the tools at their disposal to be effective. It's what you buy with that money turns out to matter a great deal. So this is another factor. Leadership matters. I'm here today to celebrate the great leadership in North East ISD and Harmony Hills. In other places, we have more leadership struggles.
Commissioner, with less teachers, more students, teachers I've come to learn are using AI as a tool to help them to mitigate that. Do you have any comments on the usage of AI?
Yeah, well, so first we actually are employing more teachers than ever before in the state of Texas. We have probably one of the smallest historic staff-to-student ratios than we've ever had. So just on the fact base of that. But no, AI is AI is a thing. It's out there, and like any technology, you can use it for good or for ill. A pencil is a piece of technology. It's been around for several thousand years, and if you use it to put up drywall, it's not a great use of the pencil. So the question is, how do you use it and what is it used for, whether it's appropriate. There's a bunch of use cases that are very inappropriate, and we hope that we can keep folks away from those particular use cases. There's some, like I think a back office processes, to the extent that you can automate, the payment of invoices with AI. That's probably a pretty good use case. So, anyways, there's pros and cons to it. You have to think through the very specific use case.
Specifically grading.
So there are folks that have used some form of automated technology-based applications for grading. Has been around for 30 years. There's a test in Texas called the TSIA. A lot of kids, it's like a Texas version of the SAT. That's had an automated grading engine for 10, 15 years. So now this is a highly technical question. So a lot of it comes down to, is the grading reliable? And so do you have enough of a sample size that goes through the automated engine that it can see patterns and patterns correctly, and then do you have appropriate controls on it? So in a small use case, like a one or two off, the likelihood that has error is pretty high. In a relatively controlled environment, same kind of question asked to 1,000 kids or so, then you can use some of that technology, but it's very, very context specific.
Time for one last question. There are districts of all different poverty levels that are achieving A's and are doing well, like testing certain therapies. I'm wondering if your agency is gonna is there any correlation between and the new ratings between economics and the
Yeah, so there is a small correlation between the density of poverty and ratings. Additionally, there's a larger correlation between the density of poverty and proficiency. That's been true for a long time. The question isn't that. The question is what causes it, and how to address it. Because just like there is an overall correlation, there are huge numbers of outliers, both directions. And we see patterns in the outliers that are great. We see patterns in these schools. They get leadership and talent and culture and curriculum and instruction right pretty relentlessly. And when they do, magically there is no correlation between poverty and proficiency. This is the thing. Like, being born on a bed of money does not give you the gift of reading. You still have to be taught phonics. You still have to learn vocabulary. And for some people, they can put their kids in Kumon outside of school and supplement what's happening in school. The question is, for us in public school, how are we organized in the school so that that isn't necessary? So that regardless of what kind of resource base the kid walks into, that we can deliver results for them at the highest possible level.
Would it be right to say that the goals are have less correlation?
Of course. We want to raise outcomes for every kid and disproportionately raise them for our groups of students that have historically been most at risk.
All right. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.